I am multi-topic talk. Today we talk, we talk, and we talk. We talk about the Acolyte. This TV show, I reviewed it weekly with Dlord Mandalore, a Star Wars fan, with Dragon Dlord, Tiamat Dlord is another Star Wars fan. I've covered a few episodes with Grey Poupet as well. And there's one thing I can say. It's not a show made for Star Wars fan. Now, do I speak for all of the Star Wars fan? I don't think so. But based on the backlash, the everyone's opinion, fandom or not, critique or not, normies or not, this TV show was not made for Star Wars fans. It actually aided Star Wars and everything it stood for. The writing was terrible. The show was forgettable. I'm 2 months too late. And I need to talk about it a bit more just one last time. Because the show also got cancelled, and I'm not surprised. Like, at all. When you need to really dig through a lot of shit to find one positive thing to say about it, there's something wrong. When you cannot find many people praising any aspect of that show, there's something wrong. When it's cancelled after one season, well, sometimes it's just unfortunate. Other times, you earned through hard work your cancellation because you sucked. Here we are. The Acolyte, a show everyone will forget ever existed 10 years from now. Nobody will even talk about it. Some random people will be like, oh, Disney did that show 10 years ago. How did that go? Cancelled after one season. Now, I asked question around. I talked in depth about the show for 8 weeks. Well, more like 5 weeks. My point stands is that this is not the worst show I've seen this year. No. I've seen The Walking Dead 7th season, and this is hard to beat. But it's one of the worst thing I've seen. Now, if we just talk about 2024, maybe it's actually the worst thing I've seen. Maybe. I would need to look back at my notes somewhere. This show got a lot of hate it didn't really deserve. Yes, there were racist people doing racist praise or that acted like racist people. They exist. But did the show fail because of racist people? Hell no. The show failed because it was bad. Let's be blunt and honest. Look back at my playlist with all of the Acolyte episode. The first week I went to debunk some of the claim people had. And later in this current video we will have perspective from Dlord. We will have perspective from Mandalore. And we will have perspective from Gray on the show and the backlash. Now, again, it's not a great show. It's not the worst thing I've seen. That's a lie. If someone comes and tell you that's the worst thing they've seen, you can't bet they've seen worse. Can bet it. Trust me. Anyway, this show was made for nobody. It was for diversity. It was just a show that existed because Disney had money to waste. The cast and writers were not the best, they were not the worst. The true issue there is they didn't really understood or enjoyed what Star Wars used to be Star Wars. They were not fans. If you go through interviews, They don't know what the F they are talking about. And you put them in charge, you put them in lead roles, you give them a script they need to follow. We need to talk about diversity. We need to talk about how Star Wars is not bad versus good. It's Disney in a nutshell. Caitlin Kennedy doesn't like Star Wars. She uses Star Wars for her own agenda. And it's funny how even the woke people could not even defend this show. Nobody could. Then there's something wrong. There is something wrong, really. I enjoyed episode 1 and 2. These were the only two decent thing about the entire shitty show. So yeah, I will let others talk about this show because I think we will talk for a long time. Like everyone together, we will talk for a long time. So here we are in the segment where I got questions to Dlord and Mandalore. And we will start by saying, question number 1 will be asked to Mandalore first. First, rewind. It will be asked to Mandalore first. What do you think of the YouTuber Star Wars Theory? Expand on it.
Honestly, I don't watch him just because I cannot stand him. And as you guys said last time was brought up, he's better than he used to be. But even though from what I've seen, one of the reasons a lot of people hate him is because he's got some ideas which are considered wrong. I just still can't stand him. The ego on him. I have trouble with watching people who are big egos and. But
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Do you want to add more, or I can
No,
pass the mic?
That's pretty much everything. I really can't add that much.
Okay, so, Dlord, what do you think of the YouTuber Star Wars Theory? Expand on it.
Star Wars Theory's been bumbling around YouTube for a while. I think he is a Canadian, but no, but seriously, I do think so. He did not initially have Star Wars Theory is his second or third channel, and basically him and a couple of others was a Stupendous Wave, Generation Tech, Eckhart's Ladder. They were the main Star Wars stuff for a while. He then had a Vader film that he was doing that was actually really good for a while. He actually did a fan project. But granted, that was his second channel at the time. Then he, of course, blew up around the sequels, other stuff. So he's interesting. He's not my favorite, but I mean, give me somewhere in the realm of it. But as far as lore, he's gotten better recently. He's a lot better when he doesn't have a scandal attached to it.
Question number 2. Question number 2, starting with Dlord this time around. Around what time in your life did you started following Star Wars? As a kid, a teenager, a young adult, or adult?
I'll say a kid. I'm a child of the 90s, so I'm old enough to know, and then I caught on to TNG. I caught on to Star Wars. I mean,
how old are you?
Maybe. Well, I know around his age, but
well, you don't have to give me exact
age. Yeah,
I would say, well,
I have an idea of his age.
I'm old, yes.
Yeah.
The idea of. So I caught on to, as I said, let's put it this way, I'm old enough to know when Little Mermaid was actually brand new. And yeah, you get the era I grew up in. So a lot of the stuff that became popular, like TNG, Star Wars, that type of stuff, naturally gravitated towards it. So a lot of like sci-fi or pop culture was a part of my childhood. Like half of my stuff growing up, I grew up on Adam West Batman.
God damn. Okay.
So you got to see, like, bear in mind, how many people do you know as well? Because like '90s was like late '80s, early '90s. We were very a lot of stuff. You don't realize stuff came out, but it did come out. Like
Well,
it's like 21 Jump Street was a TV show.
yes.
So I'm more of a child of the '90s, lady. Like I'm more of a child of the '90s. So I was
Okay.
introduced to a lot of sci-fi fandoms, Power Rangers, Saturday morning cartoons, Married with Children. So a lot of the big cultural stuff in that period, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
And as I said, even stuff that was holdovers from my grandparents' time, like you know, like most of the stuff like I grew up on was like Adam West Batman was still in circulation, of course. Original Star Trek, so as well as the original Hawaii Five O, which was the longest running CBS series for a long time.
Wow.
And like so,
I
like that.
didn't know there was an original one.
Yeah. What is it? Jack Lord was that?
Okay. Well, I think, except if you'd like to add more, I think we can pass the
Give it.
mic to Mandalore.
Um, Same question. Okay.
Yeah.
There are stages for me because I've always gone into collections, gone out it, switched into something else. Um, I was originally into Star Wars when I was a kid. I remember going to Blockbuster and hearing about Star Wars, so I rented them. But before, and this was before the 90s, early 2000s when they did the updated version. So I saw the unedited original versions. And then I sort of got out. I was like, they're cool, and I sort of got out of them. And then I ended up as a gift after the re-releases came out. I got those as a gift, which got me back into Star Wars, and I started collecting. I started actually collecting then. I loved it, but one thing that always got me back then was Episode 4 because I could read Roman numerals, but which I learned from watching Simpsons. And I was like, why is Episode 4? Where's the other movies? Is this the first box set? Is there a second box set? Is there an earlier box set? And that got me a bit off, and then I sort of faded for a couple of years, and then Episode 1 came. And that got me in. And that's one reason Maul is one of my favorite of all time is because it was Episode 1 which brought me back into it. And I enjoyed. So, yeah, I watched for a little bit, or I sort of got out of Star Wars. And I remember seeing Clone Wars figures on shelves. And I remember seeing, who is this little girl? Why are they doing a little girl? What is this? And why does she have a baby Java? And I remember some of that going, I wasn't interested. I think I was already into Marvel, or I was still doing Dragon Ball at that time. And then what actually got me back into it was more being an adult was, I remember when Force Awakens came out. I didn't want to watch it. I wasn't into Star Wars, and I talked to a friend, and he throws it, and I finally went down. But my friend at the time, who passed, was really big into Star Wars. So he got me from Marvel into Marvel was going downhill, in my opinion. As we talked earlier, I said that the last Marvel movie I saw was Far From Home, and the other movies just that were coming out did not look good.
Yeah.
And the sounds of what was coming out. But yeah, so I get obsessed. It's part of my BPD, so it's just I start getting obsessed. And I start wanting to get figures, hot toys of the figures, the ones that you see on my side over here. And I was like, I'm just going to get a couple Jedis because they look cool. Like I saw Darth Maul figures, like he's cool. I got to get him, and I'll be good. I'll just get 1 or 2 Jedi and Sith, and that will be it.
Yeah.
And then I got 12 shells full
Wow.
of them. But yeah, so that and my friend, and then after my friend passed away, it was something that we connected really good on, and I've just stuck with it since, and I've enjoyed it. And even if I don't like the newer stuff, I can still enjoy the older stuff.
That's amazing. So I think, except if you'd like to add more about that, I think we can move on to question number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so starting with you this time around, Dlord Mandalore. Question number 3. What did you think of the prequel trilogy, and what's better, the Acolyte or the prequels? Please explain and expand. And we already did a huge stream, but you can still like pour your arts out.
Even though I got more serious toward the end of the last time, rating the whole season and what's on, I just didn't want to give a number just to make a joke out of it. I'll make a joke more lighthearted because we're more lighthearted here, not really focusing on it. Like, I like Jar Jar more than I liked the Acolyte. It was just, it's what got me back into Star Wars on my own. I just really enjoyed it, and I think it's what I grew up with. Like, even though I was around I watched the other ones, as I said prior, they were new for me. And I grew up and I watched those. And Maul was just such a cool figure at the time. And there was aspects of the original trilogy that I wasn't even a huge fan of until more recently, even like Boba Fett. Seeing Jango Fett was cool. I never liked Boba Fett until more recently, because I know this is sort of slightly off, but Boba Fett always just looked like a guy with a helmet, a cool helmet, in a mechanic's jumpsuit with some armor strapped to it. And it looked bad to me. But I thought it looked so much cooler. I liked the idea. It looked a lot more elegant with multiple Jedi. I liked the era when there was more Jedi, when there was more of a open sort of thing. Like, even though it was the Galactic Republic then, it wasn't just the Emperor and then a few people who went. It was a more, every planet was sort of kind of on their own, and they responded to the higher up government, which was the Republic. But every planet had their own government.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the prequels, and I get the hate for some of them. Like Jar Jar, can't stand him. He's annoying. He's better in the Clone Wars. He's better in the Clone Wars cartoon a little bit, but I do understand the hate. I also understand the politics part can be boring, but I don't think it takes up the whole movie. And I find that the action and everything was so much cooler, and seeing the Jedi Council and seeing all of that, was just, yeah.
Do you want to add more before we pass the mic to Dlord?
I like stubbing my toe more than the Acolyte.
So I think it's crystal clear that you thought the prequels were better than the Acolyte.
They're probably my favorite of the trilogy so far.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. So I will be blunt and honest. I thought overall the original trilogy is the best, but the prequels, I like, especially Revenge of the Sith. It has a special place in my heart. But the other two is like, not sure about that.
Well, one quick thing I'll add is just the original trilogy for me. I've always had trouble watching older films. Like,
me too.
It's always hard to get into. Star Wars is like one of the only movies like in the 70s that I can actually watch regularly.
Same.
But it was the prequels were all new. They were fancy. The technology was better. The lightsaber fight compared to that was sort of very stickish, sort of because of the armor and whatnot, and just they didn't need to be as grand as they were nowadays, where they have to always try and up the stage. But the whole prequels showed you real lightsaber fights, and it was so much more interesting.
Yeah. So now I will ask Dlord, what did you think of the prequel trilogy, and what's better, the Acolyte or the prequels? Please expand.
See, as much hate as the prequels get, you don't realize how much that George did not go into Star Wars thinking he was going to come out with like 6 films. He kind of had originally like 6 to 9 planned, but like the first 3 took a long time. You never knew the backdrop to it. So he evolved the lore himself. Now, largely, it's based upon a similar idea in history, which you'd call it like the Empire. Like, yeah, they didn't. People said it broke canon, but then it's like, because it made sense for how the Empire got its start. So, compared to, they could have learned, like, Disney didn't take the lessons of the prequels. But a lot of people, that was their first Star Wars. Then they went back and they found the original 3. So Disney didn't take with like Rebels. Like
Yeah.
Rogue One, as I said, was as a side story. Even though it disavows how the death of a bunch of Boston spies, how they got a hold of the plans, but the idea of that is like new stuff. It's just hit or miss on how they come to the IPs. Acolyte is just supposed to be their magnum opus on everything that is currently Disney Wars. That's why they did a lot. Like that lineup that was supposed to be the Acolyte was supposed to be like Rogue One. I mean Rogue Squadron, sorry, and others that are like we all know, but no one knows what's the status of Rogue Squadron. Like
Yeah.
we know it's, and it's not like, I mean people say I defend it, but like there's parts of the Acolyte that are good. They bring out bizarre lore or do stuff, but then the rest of it's just mismanaged mess. Like
Dlord Mandalore reaction.
it's not even a good, well, I'm actually nice about how bad it really is. I'm just like, it has parts of it that you may not like the fighting style, but it does have some of the better. Okay, the joke actually is most of the Star Wars all go to a desert or Tatooine.
Yeah, I know.
They could always reuse the same sets.
Yeah. I
But
won't
like,
give them credit for that, though. I will admit, you're right. It's always Tatooine.
I'll just add my one opinion on Tatooine. I think there is still so much more lore around Tatooine that can be talked about, like doing a prequel ancient film older than the Acolyte, and have Tatooine when it was a lush, it was like an Earth,
Yeah.
and when the Sand People and the Jawas were more humanoid back then when they were. So I think there is more stuff that can go back, and it was hinted at in the Book of Boba Fett, which again I love, which gets me a lot of heat.
wow.
But yeah, I think there's more that can be done on Tatooine, but they do use it a lot. It's where the movie started. It's where Episode 5 pretty much. Well, after the whole spaceships fight in space, the story started on Tatooine. So I think it's one of those. It has to be part of everything.
Well,
Yeah.
it's that weirder part where you always have a desert planet or something. Because a lot of stuff, right, is it's not like if you think of any fandom stuff that's new, a lot of the fandom stuff that's coming out now, the reason why you can compare it a lot to fan service, it's all how they're actually doing it. Because, like, Mandalore and something, you have like 30 years. Even look at something like Star Wars or Warhammer 40K. You have 30 or you have like 30 years of history,
Yeah.
30 years of works. Now, let's say hypothetically you're working on a Star Wars project, or let's say you're working on or a Star Trek project. You're going to go back and look through. You would hope they do more than Wikipedia it. You would hope they go back and maybe watch at least most of the series.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those weird people that even though I liked it, I liked TNG. I didn't hate Deep Space Nine, but Voyager, you can't get me to sit and watch. Like Voyager's hit or miss with me. Like I cannot. And those are about all the same. They're supposed to like link to one another. But I was in that weird camp too. I liked Enterprise.
Yeah.
But there's like people who like like that type of stuff. Like a lot of Star Trek you see now is either based on Voyager or Deep Space Nine,
Yeah.
which
Most
So
of
to
Star
go
Trek
back,
nowadays is based on fan fiction these days.
but
dude.
you get the idea of maintaining a franchise, and that's where
Yeah.
Acolyte and other Disney Wars product it has yet to make back its money they spent.
It won't. I don't think it's
No, it
possible.
won't. No. So, bottom line, prequels or acolytes?
I'll always go with the prequels. At least are fine.
I agree. How are you, agree?
Doing pretty good.
That's amazing. So, we are here to talk about the acolyte, as we kind of already talked about behind the scene and on stream and such. So, the first thing I will ask you is, what did you think of the acolyte now that the show is over?
It was a pretty big letdown. There were some interesting things that they tried, and I don't think they were successful in a lot of them. Just disappointment and letdown are kind of what comes to mind. There's so much potential. Like this is a new era that we haven't seen on the screen whatsoever in Star Wars. Like they have some High Republic comics and stuff, but we haven't actually seen this era. So there's so much that they could have done with it. And then to hear, okay, in this time of peace where Jedis are ruling everything and essentially they are in charge, all of a sudden there's this villain that's taking out Jedis. That sounds amazing. I don't think that's what we got. I think they tried to do some gimmicky storytelling with the unreliable narrator and kind of the mystery that the whole season hinges around from the past that gets recontextualized once you know the true mystery, once you experience it Rashomon style. I don't think they were successful with that. And I think there's so much that they sacrificed to have that gimmicky storytelling method that the characterization just wasn't there. There's a lot of leaps in logic, the questions the characters would have asked. They're just left unanswered so that we have this mystery. And just when you hinge the whole thing on this gimmicky mystery, it better pay off. And sadly, it was not a good payoff. That being said, there's some really cool elements that they introduced. I really like some of the ideas that they brought about. And then there's some really cool things that were previously canon that kind of got taken out with Disney taking over, and they've brought it back in. Somehow, the Acolyte was the one to bring in like Cortosis and a bunch of other things that technically weren't there before, like Venestra's whip saber and stuff. But I don't know that this is the best way to bring that stuff into canon. I guess I was just hoping for more. I wanted to be impressed, and there wasn't a ton that impressed me. But Manny Jacinto, the stranger, that dude, he seemed to be the best part of this for me. And I gotta be honest, I liked a lot of the fight choreography. I think this would be like, well, I haven't ranked all of the films and where the fight choreography would be, but out of a lot of the newer ones and well, even most of the prequels, I don't know. I kind of like the fight choreography. There's two main battles. I believe it's 4 and the last one, or maybe it's 5. I can't remember. It's a blur at this point. We should have done this earlier. If only you had time in your schedule, Multi. This would have been so much easier. But I feel like there were 2 really good saber fight scenes, and there was some stuff in there that I hadn't seen before. After seeing everything, realizing that there isn't kind of this new force ability that he's using, it does seem like the Jedi kind of sucked in it and were extremely underpowered, but it just kind of sucks because when you're watching it weekly, like it kind of brings up like he's in your head. So maybe there's this possibility that he was actually preventing them from fighting back or something like that. It doesn't appear that's what happened. It appears, just they got Sith kebabbed for no reason. But, fair enough. I guess he fights different than they thought that he would. He doesn't have the honor that they have. But I don't know. That being said, I really like the fight choreography in the final fight and in that mid-season one, the Jedi removing one. So I don't know. There's some ups and downs, but sadly, I feel like there's more downs than ups. Overall, is the impression that I'm left with this season. But I was kind of excited to see season 2. I was hoping they were going to drop the storytelling gimmick and kind of get on with just some straightforward characterization. That will never be. So, we'll never know what's going to go on with Plagueis and the Stranger. Oh, also, Plagueis got brought into canon now because of, the Acolyte, which, he was before, and then there's some expanded universe books, but, this actually brought him into canon now. But who knows? Maybe he'll get the Willow treatment and they'll just completely erase Acolyte off of the, streaming platform. And, it just never happened. So maybe none of this stuff was brought to canon. Who really knows at this point?
That's hilarious. And to close off on that first question, what would be your grade out of 10 for the entire season?
Well, that's a good question. There are some episodes that would be higher for me, but I don't know. I think I'm left with like a 3.5 or a 4 for the whole season. It's not complete trash. There's a lot of elements that could have been done so much better, but there are some really cool things that they did. There's like 4 or 5 different homages to other films that I can think of off the top of my head that I think they did really well. There's some other things that they dropped the ball on really hard, like the Rashomon thing. But I think if I'm going to rank the whole thing, I think it would even out to like 3.5 or 4, which I'm sure is the highest ranking you've gotten on this show so far. What can I say? I wanted to not hate it.
I was the same. I was the same. I gotta say, I feel you, man. So number 2. Number 2 is: do you think the backlash for the show was deserved, and why? Or
Well, I think the backlash was overblown, for sure. So I think there's a lot of backlash that is completely inappropriate. Like, for instance, bringing up the Leslie Headland used to be Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant. So that's like 21 or 22 years ago. It's a job that she had for like a year after like immediately leaving college, trying to get her foot into the door of the film industry. At this time, there were no accusations or anything like that out there. Apparently, some people knew, and other people think there's no way that you wouldn't know. But at any given time, he's got like 5 or 6 personal assistants. I don't know how, involved in every single meeting somebody's going to be. In those actual like court cases that he went to, there was one personal assistant who was implicated, and it was just that they drove in a car to his hotel room with a celebrity. So they were implicated that they knew that much of it. Nobody else has been implicated of that, but they do have to sign really strong NDAs, which means they can't talk about anything. They cannot disclose anything that happened there, and they have to be very tight-lipped about that. However, Leslie Headland was able to create this play about, so there are different plays about the 7 deadly sins, but the one that she did, I believe it was Greed. Now I need to look into my own research on it, but it was essentially a play about Harvey Weinstein. It was about the assistant. I believe it was called Assistants was the play, but it was essentially how you have to lose your humanity to become an assistant. You essentially, your needs, your wants, whatever, it doesn't matter. You have to work endlessly to get this superior figure who is a tyrant, who's a monster, exactly what they want, and make sure that it's done on their time frame. It seems to be a very scathing indictment of her former employer to the best that she could, considering she has a non-disclosure agreement and she can't actually talk about it. So I think all that shit is really overblown, especially when people are saying, you know, of course she's going to put a topless guy exposing himself to a girl in this show because you know whose former personal assistant she is. I think all that shit's completely overblown. I think that's really horrible criticism. My God, when I first got out of high school, like shit, I worked for this one telemarketing firm. I'm not sure if they really were telemarketing or not. Like what they called it was telefundraising, that we'd call on behalf of charities like Habitat for Humanity, World Wildlife Fund, like these real legit charities, and then ask for more donations. I don't know that the money actually went to them. Like, I don't know if I was just scamming old people who were willing to talk to me, who had, you know, wanted to save the animals or whatever. It made me feel really dirty. I didn't last that long there. It was under a year, but you know, I wasn't trying to get into that industry. I'm thinking of the other industries that I have tried to work in. And yeah, like when I was in construction, I know I worked for some racist, horrible pieces of shit. That doesn't mean that I was a racist, horrible piece of shit. It's just that guy signs my paycheck, so I'm not going to call him out on every single thing he does. So with my personal experience and the fact that this was like 20 years ago and nobody has any proof that she knew anything torrid or anything like that, I just feel like that's a really bad criticism. But there's so many things to criticize about the show, so why talk about that at all? But I know that was a tweet that went very viral, and then it seemed like every creator who was talking about the Acolyte kept bringing that up. There's the Amanda Steinberg thing. She got a whole bunch of criticism that she said some stuff on a previous interview for a previous show that she did, and then Trevor Noah had a joke about she's just trying to make white people cry. And then she had a callback to that at the end of that interview. People used just that clip of like, yeah, I just want to see white people cry, as you see, she's racist. She's horrible. Like, you should hate her. So then she kind of released that discourse track, whatever you want to call that, clapback track. I can understand why she did that, but man, that just kind of put the internet against her. It didn't seem like a lot of people were too supportive of that. I can understand the need or the want to kind of set the record straight. Her whole thing was about discourse. She didn't feel like it was honest discourse. I kind of understand that. It seems like that's really the wrong move in that case. But hey, it got people talking about it. I think a lot of people clicked on that video. And, you know, I'm picturing it in my head right now. If she hadn't done that video, I probably couldn't be doing that right now. So
Wait for it.
Because that's where you get more of the first three were better than the second, but it's like, oh, but yeah, you know, the thing called the Clone Wars helped shape the Empire.
Yeah. So, next question, number 4, starting with Mandalore this time around. Outside of the movies, did you follow the source of material on different medias, such as books, novel, video games? Please expand.
Up until more like when the originals came out, or when the prequels came out, when I really started getting into it, there wasn't as much online. Like, the websites were still more fan done. There wasn't actually fact-based sites as much. So I got most of my stuff from StarWars.com. But I looked into it, and then especially when I got back into it, I didn't just go, I was like, okay, let's watch the movies. All right, I've watched all the movies. There's TV shows. Let's watch the TV show. And I've watched basically all the TV shows except the only 2 TV shows I have not watched, and movies, are the Ewoks, droids, and the Ewoks movies.
I did watch one of the Ewok movie. That was bad.
But the one cool, interesting thing about it is that's where Night Sisters were introduced, was in the Ewoks movie.
I actually forgot about that.
Well, I do, and because I've never watched it, I didn't have a chance to miss it. But I would, but whenever I'm into a topic or a show or a fandom that's bigger than just one, like Star Wars, it wasn't just one Star Wars movie; it was a whole years of it. I go looking and I look, oh, this is my favorite character, and try and read stuff, and then I try and I do my own research just to try and find stuff out. Like there was like Inquisitors. There was actually in Legends, there's a canon, or in Legends there was a Night Sister Inquisitor, which was cool. I've looked up all of, like, I haven't read most of the books, but I went and I read the what's it called? I read most of the later stuff, the future Skywalkers, K Skywalker. I read about the war with the species. I've done a lot of research into the Solo twins and Anakin, like everything, and but yeah, I do go outside of the movies. I do the books. I do the movies. I do even some of the encyclopedias. And yeah, I get fascinated by stuff, and I just want to know more.
That's interesting. I don't have that kind of energy, but I respect that so much.
Well, I also again have a lot of time on my hands because I'm on disability, so I just
Yeah.
what else do I do? And I don't drive, because of anxiety, so I sit on my computer most of the day. So what am I going to do? I have 3 screens sort of set up: one dual wide monitor and then a regular. One screen is set mostly just to media, one is to Facebook, and the other is to Twitter. And then between those 2 social media windows, I will then have other tabs open for looking up stuff, like even doing toy research, like, oh, which is the best version of this figure? Who did they make figures of?
Yeah.
Oh, what's coming out? What is there anything I want? Pricing, stories. Like, I still look up random information. Like when I look up Night Sisters, the Inquisitor Night Sister I just learned about because it was something related to Marin or something, and I'm always, if I'm into something, I get into it.
Yeah. That's cool. That's one of the
And
great things about you, I think.
and for games, like, I'm not a big gamer. I've also in the more recent years gotten motion sickness when playing games. So I can't play for too long, but I play the 2 Force Unleashed and the 2 Jedi games, Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. I also play Battlefront 2 a lot. I'll play like 3 rounds. But if there's a game I don't even play, like the new one that's coming out, which does not look good, I'm not spending that money. I'm like, and I wasn't into Jedi Fallen Order, but I watched videos of it, and that's what I'm going to do with this game. Is there's some channels that just go through games and they'll do the whole playthrough, and it's like a movie.
Yeah.
And I'll do that, and I'll sit there. Like, for some games, I love the story, but I just don't have it in me to play it, or it's the type of game I wouldn't be good at and get frustrated with. So I'll sit down and watch the whole gameplay like a movie.
That's cool. That's fun. Do you want to add something on that?
No, that's everything.
So, Dlord, your time to shine. Outside of the movies, did you follow the source of material on different medias such as books, novel, video games? Please expand. Dlord, are you there with us? So, Tiama is back. Outside of the movies, did you follow the source of material on different media such as books, novels, and video games? Please expand. Tiama Dlord.
Yes, I did. Had a lot of it it's like the same thing. It's like when you get into certain fandoms, like you have that, and you go back and look at it. Like, I remember back when, like, the only original, like, stuff we had to deal with was Heir to the Empire and that type stuff. Like, I'm not going to deny including in, like, certain type of Legends lore or EU, it's not a messy kerfuffle. Because, as I said, a lot of people knew of the Clone Wars, right? but they didn't expand on it. The movie, I don't think, was the best film, but
Okay.
the series is really good. And eventually some of the writers got into following a canon. Like it goes like Heir of the Empire, which was supposedly used to inspire this, to the Acolyte, sure, had the Jedi twins, the Sun Crusher, Thrawn, trying to rebuild the Empire. Like, I don't mind how they did Thrawn in Rebels, but when I say they made Thrawn look like Elon Musk, God. Like,
Elon is the bad guy.
but you gotta understand, that's like internal jokes, but that's like true. Like, it's one of those things of Thrawn, like certain characters in Legends are a lot more badass than, or stronger than, because like during the Clone Wars is a prime example, and this is what you don't see, like you kind of see it in the films, is
Yeah.
Grievous is a monster. Like, they have like, he could basically duplicate any style thrown at him in like seconds, like a robot. Yeah, he has a choke, like he has like this raspy like thing because not Dooku, but Windu was gonna crush his heart, choked him. But Windu's like, would you fight him again? No. He'd probably kill you because he could kill like a knight or master level. But you don't really see that. Like, that's like the stuff you don't see because Legends in the books and other like Dark Horse comics is what filled out the rest of the thing. Like, we had some video games, like the Dark Forces series I played as a kid. Shadows of the Empire I played as a kid too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like up until, and the prequels were inspired a lot.
Yeah. Do you want to add more?
I'm good.
Okay. So I guess this closes off this question. So moving next to Dlord Mandalore. That one will be funny. I can only guess. Because I can already know the answer, but I will still ask it because that's the point of these questions. Most of them I already had an idea of what guys would respond, but it's still they are in the video because it matters.
That
Anyway.
predictable.
So question number 5 to Mandalore again. What did you think of the original trilogy, Dlord Mandalore, and what's better, the OT or the Acolyte? Please expand.
Was that question you're going to ask for each and every one? So, which one do you prefer?
Yeah.
What did I think of the original trilogy? Do you know what, the original trilogy, when I watched it, like when I watched it on its own, it was a good set. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, and again, even then, I had trouble getting to older movies. I don't know if it's just a quality difference that just kind of pulls me out, like where you can sort of see when you watch a movie, like you can not even the color, it's just the sort of film style and the clothes and everything. It just gives away its age. But I still got into it, and it was just like, it was a good. And again, things were corny in it because of the time. Like, I've never been a huge fan of the Rebels outfit, like those big sort of helmets. I just never been a fan. There's like things about it I don't like. There's things about it I love, like Darth Vader. I always loved the stormtroopers and like the TIE fighter pods. I always thought they looked so cool growing up. Yeah, I was going to say I've watched it, but I've sort of distanced myself from the original trilogy just because of, and I won't get into politics, but Mark Hamill. It's really annoyed me, so it's hard to really sit down and watch them. But yeah, I still enjoy them, and I still recommend them, and I still tell people not to. I still tell people not to skip them until something's classified as decanonized, like books are. Watch it and watch the sequels as well, because it's a good story. It's just something like the one thing that just I even noticed as a kid that was horrible was in Return of the Jedi, on top of when they're doing the fight above the
reactor.
No, this is my brain farts happening. The Sarlacc pit. And that one kick Luke does that doesn't connect, and it just kicks the air, and then the guy goes, ugh. Like, again, and every Star Wars property, good and bad, have errors, and seeing things like Mandalorian has that very seamless jeans guy. Like, and any modern show that does sort of sci-fi, like even Game of Thrones, have had issues with coffee cups and watches. Like, it has its flaws, but I think it's generally overall good. And I prefer the Star Wars Christmas special. And the only part of the movie I actually like is the small cartoon with Boba Fett. I would rather watch, for the same length it takes to watch from episode 1 to 8 from start to finish. I'd rather watch the B. Arthur scene and the one where Chewie's father is watching porn, VR porn in the living room.
I've seen this shit, the Christmas special. So the soul fight that you're saying, it's better, and that's funny because I do agree. I'd rather watch the Christmas special many times over the Acolyte.
Yeah, like,
I just didn't think of it, but now you bring this up, and I'm like, yeah, he's right, you know.
But like Mark Hamill, like, they put no effort into it, and as Carrie Fisher said, apparently it was punishment for something from Lucas, but I can't remember what. It was just they were getting punished, but like the blonde hair, like, it was such a horrible job for Mark Hamill looking, and it's just the only thing is part of that movie's actually made canon, and that's one reason I love the Boba Fett. I love that part of the story, because that little cartoon, even though it's that same as the droids and the Ewoks cartoon, the same style, which I'm not a huge fan of, it's still not a horrible story. And that's the first introduction of Boba Fett. That came out before Empire, I think.
Yeah.
But what's canon is when Boba Fett's taming with the Rancor, and he's saying, "You want to rise?" And he's like, "I've ridden beasts 10 times this size," is referring to that sort of dinosaur thing he rode in that cartoon.
Sorry for the small cut here. We are back.
They're good.
I will let you keep going, Mandalore,
But
on
yeah.
your ideas.
I'm not quite sure where I started off, but part of the Boba Fett cartoon was made sort of canon. Like, it doesn't direct, so it's not something that's like canonized canon, but it's sort of been whenever someone brings it up and connects the two, like, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I will bring up about the original trilogy, Nick Sant, the old guy at the end of the movie on Endor, is not Captain Rex. He's a separate character altogether.
As I said before, I think a lot of the original stuff they did was better than most of the Disney stuff. But then again, you got to bear in mind, on a scale of it, you're going to find that even in execution, outside of most, which is Disney Wars, Rebels, but that was mainly made for kids. Clone Wars, of course, already had a pretty good, decent precedent. That's what he was going to call Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Because the guy didn't think it was real.
Oh, look at that shirt. Oh, that's
No,
cool.
the blanket. This is the Revenge of the Jedi version
Wow.
poster.
Basically, he was going to go with like, and so goes, how could that be real? And it's like, but yeah, there was like one part of the script goes, but then someone said, well, but then like other people is it's not like Lucas. Lucas had a bunch of other writers underneath him that helped do it, but it was still a big labor of love or work. So something that should have been an easy project was all turned out to be hard. Earlier this morning, Halo got canceled.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not surprised. That show was dog shit, and I'm a huge Halo. Well, huge.
Why did they even
I
get
like the
canceled?
games. I adore the games. Before 343 killed the franchise, but
I was up till 4. That's when I the last game I played was
Yeah.
4. I loved the game up until then, and that's what
I played 5. You missed nothing.
I'm not surprised it was canceled. I'm actually surprised it made a second.
Oh, I'm
season.
surprised they got a second season because
Well, yeah.
because like if you look at like the Disney Wars stuff, they test this stuff religiously because they had to create a new fan. The Force Awakened ones. Then again, they stopped giving it. If you stopped caring about your lore and taking care of it, even something as campy as a Christmas special, because most people just forgot about it because they made better things. So the idea of even in the original trilogy, as I said, it has its flaws. They went through like Empire Strikes Back is a strange one, but like I mean it's what helped save Star Wars was a lot of stuff afterwards.
yeah,
It was a foundation because even though there were rewrites, because Lucas goes, well, we need red lightsabers because they're evil. Then that gets expanded on later on. So it's like, oh. So a lot of stuff is, but that's why he took more care with like the prequel trilogies.
yeah,
The idea. He more had an idea, but he also, him and his writers and other stuff, were able to do things. Like Boba Fett surviving being kicked into the Sarlacc pit.
And that wasn't even a new idea. That was actually in Legends, and he eventually becomes Mandalore.
Like,
Wow.
that some people go, how could this happen? But it's like, well, you never know. Like, because when you're first introduced to a lot of characters, you just see them like offhand as like, oh, they're the bounty hunters.
yeah,
So it's very much it's a movement that Star Wars is very similar to like Lord of the Rings or like the Dune books, spawned off its own universe.
yeah.
But let's say on that.
So, closing thoughts: OT or Acolyte?
So pretty much, I go with the OT. As most Disney Wars, I'm not going. Very few stuff is rivaling anything was done in the prequels or the OT.
Okay, well, it's time for the next question, and this one is a bit, I should say, different. It is question number 6, and it's more a bit different because of the Star Wars topic. Who are your favorite non-white main character, and who would be your favorite female character? Please expand, starting with Mandalore.
Again, it's Dragon's turn to start first.
No, it's your turn again because I said so.
All right, so the first one was who's my favorite non-white character?
Yep, main character of anything, like any media and like
any media.
yeah, any media or Star Wars. If it's Star Wars, then amazing. Bring
Well,
Star Wars in again.
I was going to say it probably would be this.
I wanted to make it easy, so you just take a non-white. That's it.
Samuel Jackson. because he is a good actor. I've enjoyed him. I don't think I've ever seen one of his movies I haven't been a fan of. Like, it's hard to say because I don't base anyone off color. Like, I'm just trying to nail down one specific. But I'd probably go Samuel Jackson.
So Mace Windu, if we save specific character, or
Yeah, because there's not too many actors I pick out for just their talent. Just to sort of then put a narrowing thing on it. And I also just got my Mace Windu figure, which I absolutely love. So yeah, I'll go with him and keep it Star Wars related again.
but again, it was really large and at large. It was more like because there's a lot of controversy. Oh, guys are racist. Guys are sexist. Well,
Oh no, I know.
an
And
example of characters you like that are non-white. I'm sure you
Oh,
can name a
and one
few.
actor, and my mind is just kind of lately because I just Star Wars and I just got some new stuff today and yesterday. So Temuera Morrison, I think he is a great actor. I'll keep it in Star Wars just for myself. What's her name? Who plays Boba Fett? Fennec, Ming.
Oh yeah, the girl that was in Agents of Shield, the more recent one, yeah.
Yeah, Rosario
Ming-Na
Dawson.
Wei, I think. Ming-Na Wei, something like that.
Rosario Dawson, I loved her. The first thing I ever saw her in was Clerks, and I loved that. Almost every actor in Star Wars I've had no issues with. Just the race. The only people who I've disliked, and not because their color, it's probably the easier thing to say, is the more recent shows. Like Acolyte, the acting from her was her. Most of the acting on that show, even from the actors who were actual actors, were phoning it in.
Carrie-Anne Moss, yeah.
But what's his name? Who played Martian Man? Was it Martian Manhunter?
Yeah, Martian Manhunter, yeah. David
they all
Haywood, I think.
I've seen him in a couple things, and he's usually more of a blander actor, but it works for his characters, and especially for Martian Manhunter. He almost seemed to do the same acting for Martian Manhunter that he did here. There wasn't as much energy in it. It was a paycheck to them. Like any of the big actors who appeared in that, I think it was literally one of those. It's a paycheck thing, and it's even if it sucks, it's still a known name, Star Wars.
Would you watch a Mace Windu spin-off or something like that?
Depends. If it was like a prequel show, like a young Mace Windu, I don't know, because I always hate when they sort of have to recast people when they do things later on. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of most of the solo actors of older characters. Young Billy Ray Cyrus, or not Billy Ray Cyrus, Billy D. Williams. I can't remember his name, from Community. I did not like him at all in that role. It just didn't, because the original one was more classy. Like, it just felt like over-exaggerating his sort of some of his features. And to do who could play a young Mace Windu? And to have Mace Windu, you would also need some of the older Jedi who are around who would be there. And I don't know who you'd get as a Count Dooku, a younger him. Like, that would do honor to the actor who did it, because he was a big known actor.
Yeah.
So I would honestly love, and that was one of my complaints with Mandalorian, was when they finally showed the flashback to Grogu being saved, or in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
My hope is, and I'm one of those big believers that Mace survived, is getting thrown out the window. Mace Windu is very strong. He has some connection to the dark side. I'm pretty sure he could have survived. And I was kind of hoping that somehow he survived and then snuck in and went and rescued Grogu or something, like got the next Yoda sort of rescue. There was other stories, other options for who rescued him that I would have preferred over what's his name, because I'm just not a huge fan of that actor. But
It's so far, man. I've seen that a year ago, and I will be honest, I kind of blanked on it.
the same guy who played Jar Jar Binks.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I don't agree with the hate he's gotten or the harassment he's gotten, but at the same time, he's now given this sort of special treatment because he was harassed. His thing, I saw him a bit in that game show he did.
Yeah.
But I was never a huge fan of, like, and it's nothing like I dislike him. There's some actors that they just don't vibe with you. But if if Samuel Jackson came back for old man Mace,
Yeah.
which he could do at this point, especially with his age, and he doesn't look horrible for his age, they could do that. I would watch that as long as they do it properly, because that could be a very interesting story.
Yeah.
And going back, I think that's about it for that. But yeah, I would watch something preferably future or after Revenge of the Sith, not prior to A Phantom Menace. And to female actors, I love Scarlett Johansson.
She's hot, even in her 40s.
Oh, but Samuel Jackson, that's not a hot chick. Scarlett Johansson, Daisy Ridley, Rosario Dawson. I don't really have a favorite. I thought, what's her name, who played Cara Dune, Gina Carano, did a wonderful job in that role. I also loved her as Stardust in Deadpool. There's many. It's just I don't like a lot of the newer actors these days, and that's nothing to do with race or gender. But the ones who I listed. Oh, and Katie Sackhoff. I loved her in the Riddick movie. I still have to get around to watching Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
But the one thing I saw her in before that, which was the Riddick movie, I really enjoyed her there.
Okay. Do you want to add more?
No.
Okay, so I will ask the same question to Dlord. Of the Star Wars topic, who are your favorite non-white main character, and who would be your favorite female character? And again, I will tell you to expand. And if you want it to be Star Wars, go for Star Wars. But if you want it to be any IP, that's fine. It's like favorite non-white and favorite female.
See, the way you phrased the question is really interesting because a lot of people, let's say, being a child in the 90s, we had outside of the quote-unquote early with the beating of Rodney King, when they said, well, racial tensions were high. Not really. Most of the 90s we were on that cusp of you didn't really look at color, you looked at acting. So Star Trek TNG had a look, even if you want to go outside of a sci-fi, I'm blanking on the guy's character, but like Walker, Texas Ranger. Oh, okay, that's an American reference. His sidekick. I think it was Travis. Like you had a bunch of people in the roles that were good. Tuvok. I mean, even when they showed, by the way, in the movies, like a young Tuvok.
Yeah.
It's so a lot of that stuff, right? And when you go in and you look at like these things, we judge a series on how it's done.
Yeah.
You didn't really look at it because a lot of these franchises, yeah, you could look at it like when people saw like Resident Evil, the films, yeah, was she Jill from the game? Sure. You know. And it's not the old cliche, you always go back to Tomb Raider, you go back to these things.
Yeah.
Like, it's very much, it's like they act like we never had strong female leads. That's like when they did the Dune films. The guy's like, well, there was never female representation. Who haven't gone it? Brett Spiner and Jonathan Frakes. But, like, Patrick Stewart as a show on that is an example, too, because this is a topic if you ever wonder. He was always a liberal guy because Picard, the character of him, was modeled after his stage. But
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart is a very interesting. He got more progressive as he went older.
Well, now he does American Dad, and the comments he makes on there is not liberal at all.
Oh no, well that's a different topic because he's. But it's like these whole things of if you look at Star Wars, but like we care about acting and how you can do it. Like, but when you bring back a series or you look at something, like I hate to tell people, even if you hate Voyager, 7 and 9 was a better character actor than Janeway.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I would like to add is, and going back a little bit about the show, when we were talking about the shows that we grew up with, I grew up on a lot of late 80s, early 90s, even some 70s shows. Like, I was born in 87. Like, I'm technically a 90s baby, but I was born in the 80s. And I grew up on a lot of reruns, because back then it wasn't as much syndication and whatnot. It was just, shows were good. Even though they ended, they still kept playing them. And, like, the shows I grew up on were, like, Full House, Married with Children. Like, I don't know how my parents let me watch Married with Children. But Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and what was this spinoff of Cosby Show? The college show. It's a different world. Or a different world. And like all the shows had either minorities run it, like big characters, or female leading pretty much the show. Like especially different worlds.
By the way, fun fact.
How can we make it fit in with the narrative and whatnot?
Yeah.
And they made it work. Like I remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air one when he was what's his name? Princeton? The dorky guy. And I remember that, and it was Dean Cain who was the racist. But it all
Why him? Because he's white.
But he was also the best Superman in my opinion. But those episodes, it didn't feel forced. Like it felt like a natural thing. Actually,
Yeah.
X amount of episodes. Like if you took, like prime example, you took like Marvel Comics as they sold now, and if you put them out in the 90s, they would have been deemed massive beyond failures. The writers would not be moved off that project or move on. It would not be a success.
It would not be defended.
It would not be defended because if the units did not sell, but like you're basically, but you can also say the 90s comic bust, but like the comic idea of, oh, you can have a niche and you see these writers pat themselves on the back, whether it's Game Awards now. Like the thing in the 90s, right, you had Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for moralistic episodes. Like you had like when Uncle Phil's trying to get them into like a black fraternity, goes, I was part of this one. And it shows like the one checking Carlton because he's not black enough. It ends with the episode where the guy trying to kick the one guy out, like Carlton. He goes, well, I don't feel you're a proper black man to be part of our stuff. You get out of here too. You have access to Generation 1 Sesame Street in Canada?
Yeah. I will be honest. I'm in a different part of Canada, and we have our own stuff. Like
Yeah, he's
Did you
French
get
Canada.
access?
He's French
Did you-
Canada. He doesn't count.
yeah, I don't count exactly.
Oh,
Got
okay.
it right.
So you might have your own version of it, like in the U.S., right? When like one of the main characters died. Like I grew up on Pee Wee's Playhouse, the original.
Mr. Hooper.
Like the death of Mr. Hooper. That was meant to teach kids how to deal with grief as a child. Like the actor died, and they go, "Well, we need closure." They would act.
Really, who is your favorite non-white in any media, and who is your favorite female in any media?
If I have to ask, it's probably Worf.
And from this is from what TV shows or movie?
TNG.
And why is she there or E? I don't know that correct.
Michael Dorn.
Oh, okay. Why?
Probably first resonated with me.
Okay.
And there is a soft spot in my heart for the kid from Zach from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
That's cool. And what about female?
Probably Pud. It comes from some of the characters from TNG. Like, no. It's weird. It depends on the roles. Be honest.
Okay, but if you had to name one.
Do I have it? It's one of my favorites. I have favorites
Here's a better way to sort of think of it. You have to watch 3 movies of one actress. Random ones. So like it's not in a series. Which actress would you pick to watch 3 movies of?
I mean, if I hate to say it later on, it's probably Tomb Raider. Lord.
Oh, and why? Why Tomb Raider? Tomb Raider.
Like,
So Angelina Jolie.
Laura Croft in reality is what a lot of my generation had her. We had Samus even.
Yeah, but she had no movies. But you're right, she's cool. I'm
Like
a huge Metroid fan.
But to be fair, though, if you actually want to say what my favorite is, you can go even. What's funny is if you didn't even think about it, is the early TAS like they did with Catwoman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like our Catwoman is a character. Even she's like, name a genre, I'll probably have a good female character I like out of it. X-Men's Jean Grey or Storm.
Yeah.
Seems to be successful. She seems to have gotten her message across to some, but yeah, that really infuriated others. The other kind of criticism I saw was that they're trying to make Star Wars sexy, or it's too sexy, with Manny Jacinto being half naked, and you can see his glistening upper muscles. I think the descriptive audio called it. Yeah, I don't know. When I think back to, like, we've gotten pictures of like topless Anakin in bed with Padme, and we've gotten Luke in basically his underwear in a Bacta tank. There's been a whole bunch of near nudity. Natalie Portman, when she's battling in the arena, for some reason her costume keeps getting strategically torn so that, there's a lot of midriff exposed and thighs and stuff. Same thing with Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. I don't know. I think Star Wars has been a sexy thing. I think there's a reason why it's kind of a go-to, and why you can find a million people, cosplaying as sexy slave Leia. It's kind of iconic. It's badass, but then you've also got iconic things like Han Solo. A lot of people also cosplay as him, and I think a lot of people find Han sexy. So yeah, all I'm saying, and we haven't even begun to talk about Wookiees. So I'm just saying Star Wars has been sexy. I don't think they made it too sexy, but fair enough. I guess they showed something different and something kind of interesting to me, but a lot of people took criticism with it that how would you seduce a female to the dark side? would it be the same thing as a man? Like, would they necessarily be interested in power straight up, or perhaps it would be a different kind of power? I don't know. It was interesting. I don't know that it was executed the best that it could have been, but I don't know. I kind of liked the Manny Jacinto, the stranger chimere, OSHA thing. For me, the May stuff didn't work out, but I don't know. I was intrigued to kind of see where that was going to go and to kind of see this new master apprentice thing. But yeah, I don't know how successful they were, but again, I guess a lot of it was kind of set up for next season. It was just supposed to be what could kind of seduce you to the dark side, and then you see the real full transformation next season, which we won't get. I think there was a shitload of other criticism. Basically, anything that could be criticized in this was, a lot of people pointed out, like in Force Awakens, there's also a forest scene. In this one, there's a forest scene, and these trees look rubbery, but those were real-looking trees. Yeah, fair enough. There is a bigger budget for this, but there are more hours. It's essentially like 3 times the amount of material that needs to be produced. So I don't know. When you do extrapolate that budget down, it's not exactly 1-to-1. They are paying less per episode than you would get on a full movie. They probably don't have the A-team working on an actual, Acolyte TV show as opposed to like the Disney movies or the giant Star Wars movie release. There's a myriad of factors, but fair enough. Yeah, it doesn't look great. But when there are actual really cool locations that are shown, much like the now I can't remember it. It's Unknown Planet is what the title card comes up as. It's the one that has Cortosis on it. It's the one that Plagueis is on, but I can't remember the name of that stupid island. They never actually give it in the show, but yeah, a lot of people were thinking it looked like Octo. That was a beautiful island, and you can tell that they were on location actually there. I didn't hear anybody like actually bring that stuff up, but the people who were mocking the sets and everything, they don't mention it when they actually do go to a majestic looking location and have some really cool landscape and scenery. And you can see, there was some money spent to actually take them to this location, to actually put the giant cameras, all the equipment they need to actually like film there. But, when they were in Chimere's cave or hut or whatever, it did look kind of plastic. It's weird because there's some money that they spent in certain areas, and in certain areas it just looks like they cut corners. So I understand some of those criticisms, but again, I think some of them are a little bit too overblown. I know a lot of people were criticizing like the costuming, and it's like, I don't know. I think they're supposed to have really pure looking robes. They're like kind of the religion, kind of the government of this time. I don't know. To me, it makes sense. And it would be something that we haven't quite seen before, but is reminiscent of it. To me, a lot of the costuming worked. And then a lot of people hated the like Basil Sniffer character too. And the whole, is he non-binary or whatever? I think a lot of people read way too much into that line. Like, I think it was just somebody who like assumed somebody's gender and then was like, well, actually, I don't know. And then they were never corrected or anything like that. It wasn't like making a huge thing like, actually, that's not a he or a she. Like, it seems so nothing to me, but a lot of people were making a huge deal out of it. And then that character too, like, not that character, but that species isn't something new, but it wasn't in canon before. It's from Han Solo's Revenge, which was in like the 70s. They created this sniffer type character, this type species. And Leslie Headland brought it into canon with this. It's just weird. Like, there's a lot of kind of cool things that got canonized because of this show, but I don't know that this is the best way to do that or that it deserved it. I don't know, man. I got real mixed feelings about it, but it might get the Willow treatment and then just completely, whatever you want to call that, vanished. From Disney Plus. So, perhaps you'll never see it again. But I don't know. It was a phenomenon, but apparently nobody watched it. Every sort of the ratings just doesn't seem to bear out with how many people were talking about it. Maybe it's my stupid feed, but it was everywhere on my YouTube feed, on my Twitter, on like all my socials. For some reason,
I think it was yours.
Maybe, but when I talk to everyone else, like they seem to be saying like the same type of deal. But that didn't actually translate to any views. So I don't know. If the kind of contention with some of the actors and all that stuff was intentional, it did bring up people talking about it. It does appear to be the most talked about Disney Plus show in quite a long time. But again, that didn't lead to any views. So I don't know. It seems to be quite unsuccessful.
Yeah. That's a great segue for the final question for today. What do you think of the cancellation of this show?
I got kind of mixed feelings. I understand why it's canceled. I mean, like, come on, of course. Like, that was not a good season. It wasn't really what we were promised. But there are little nuggets in there, little seedlings that could grow into something really cool. Again, I like the stranger character, Manny Jacinto. I kind of want to know his backstory. I kind of want to know where it goes. Like, is he with Plagueis? Does he know that Plagueis is watching them? Like, how exactly is this going? So in the novelization, Plagueis did have two different apprentices, if you will, in the whole. Well, technically it wasn't Plagueis, but it's interesting. So it does appear that like no matter what they would have done in the next season, it would have kind of broken like the Plagueis novelization. A lot of the information, the backstory that we do kind of have that's not canon now. So I just wanted to know where they were kind of going with that. And I would like to see from a show from the Sith's point of view. I feel like I probably should have brought this up too when you were mentioning the criticism, but a lot of people were saying that they completely misunderstood Jedis or got Jedis wrong and are trying to make Jedis the enemy. I don't see that. I see that they're trying to kind of humanize these people and show that, you know, these people, they're still human, even though they're trying to essentially have a theocracy, like this religious government thing that is just an entity that is kind of being challenged by this other group, the Senate. That is kind of interesting to me, and the kind of dynamics there that they have to somewhat cover up their misdeeds or deeds that are happening so that they don't get pressure to take away some control, which we know by the time the prequels come, the Jedi aren't in charge. So there is some sort of transition where they are taking power away from the Jedi. That seems like that could be really cool to see. However, the glimpse of it that we got this season is pretty much like a couple little sprinklings and then a hint of it in the last episode. I honestly wish essentially that last episode is where this season started. It would have been kind of interesting. There are some actual threads that I cared about there. But I don't see them as ruining the Jedi. What I see is they're showing these deeply human sides. You know, like Soul, for instance, he's not every single Jedi. He is somebody who shouldn't have been a Jedi. He can't get rid of his attachments. It's shown that in every single episode. He is overly attached. He is not being this Jedi. Like even his Padawan Jackie like points that out to him that like, hey, or trainee, I don't know, whatever the hell she was. I guess I forget exactly what she was when she got taken out. But
yeah, she was a Padawan, I think.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, it just. I don't see it as an indictment of all Jedi. It was basically Soul's character that this guy shouldn't have been in charge, and then other people did horrible things to essentially back him up and back his side of the story. That being said, that huge payoff did not work out. Anybody criticizing what the actual twist is in this, criticize away. Like that is not enough to actually make this okay, so some dude's gonna just meditate for what was it, like 15 years or something. And then that's the other thing that got introduced is the Barash vow or Barak. I can't remember exactly how it's pronounced, but that is an actual thing that a character has done in the, I believe it was the Darth Vader comics. It is an actual thing that people basically take these vows of meditation, and that's like it. I don't think the trauma that was created from this encounter with the witches would be enough to create that. It feels like there could have been something way more intense, way deeper that could have actually called for that. And, you know, maybe that would actually be something deep enough to make someone question their faith in this. But as it is, I don't know. It just feels like that payoff really sucked. I don't know. I see it as there's an indictment of a bunch of individuals, not the Jedi as a whole. And then, power. People generally don't want to just give up their power. So I can also see Vanestra kind of pulling strings to kind of try to maintain power and to let as little information slip out as possible.
Question number 7. And I will ask you, Dlord, what did you think of the sequel trilogy, and what's better, the sequel or the Acolyte? Please expand.
You mean 6? You mean 5, 6, 4, 5, 6?
7,
no,
8, 9.
no, 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9 or Acolyte.
God, you are talking torture. They're both bad.
Do you want to get burned or hit by a car? Which one?
Okay, if you're talking even in the sequels, the only one that I think is decent of the sequels is... I don't know whether you get more radical with the idea. Outside of The Force Awakens, I can't even imagine they're both the same levels of car wrecks. I mean, I hate to tell you. I've seen better acting in later Disney shows than in some of the last 2 of the sequels. I mean,
it wasn't that the acting wasn't bad. It was the writing and the dialogue which was bad in the
what do you
sequel.
mean? Bring in Rian Johnson that had who did this same level of destruction, like he just was there for a paycheck, that he wasn't even a Star Wars fan.
Oh, it's worse than that. She copied him. She was inspired by him, so that's why.
Find Acolyte less sufferable than half the sequels.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There's a point of
Shame.
you can give me the worst some of the Disney Wars TV shows that are like not as bad.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. I will ask Dlord Mandalore the same question. The sequel trilogy or Acolyte? What's better? Expand.
A shotgun to the temple is better than the Acolyte.
And what did you think of the sequel, to be honest?
In all honesty, when I first saw him, I was really not a fan. Like, I saw they killed off all the original cast and they never really got. And what really sort of got me is that before even the last movie, Carrie Fisher died. Because they could have always gone back and changed stories, or they could have redone the movies if they were so much disliked. But when she died, it sort of cemented those stories.
Yeah.
And like the first one, as I said, I think was it yesterday, that the first Force Awakens was almost a New Hope ripoff.
Yeah.
And like all 3 seem to have a ripoff of the original 3. Like, it just seems to be copying big parts. But in the end, I've learned to find enjoyment in them. Like, as much as it sucks, it still is canon, and it's just... And some of the flaws, which were they didn't explain enough things in the movie, like who is Snoke truly, they had to go and do comics and books and explain that more.
Yeah.
That's bad when you have to go back and fill in all the things like they should have been involved in the movie. Like, they were originally, because before Rian Johnson messed everything up, it was supposed to be Snoke was supposed to be revealed. His history was supposed to be revealed in that movie. But no,
Wow.
they just killed him off, and then they just have to do a throwback to showing him in jar, like versions of him in jars, just to kind of explain, okay, he was a failed clone.
Wow.
But I enjoyed the story. It was enjoyable enough that Star Wars, as long as I don't focus on too much of the stuff that's annoying. Like, one thing that I'm not as much. The first time I watched New Hope, I thought Finn was supposed to be playing. The guy who played Finn was supposed to be a special needs character. Like, and not insulting, because just the way how he was repeating everything to Poe, and just how he was like anything Poe said, it was like he never thought for himself, and it would make sense that they'd make him focus on fighting first and then not to be able to think for themselves. And I thought that what was going on with Finn. I thought he was kind of just was never educated. He was just a fighter.
Yeah.
And the Rose Tico, I wasn't a huge fan of her. I just found her to be the character to be annoying. Nothing against the actress. It was how it was written. I thought the more interesting of the two sisters was the one who died in the beginning. Not because she died. I just thought she seemed to actually even be a slightly better actress, but it's nothing against. But again, do not attack actors or actresses you don't like because of the role. Attack them because they're commies. No, I'm just kidding.
Best comment, best moment.
No, it's there. There's things about it I don't like. There's things about I like the upgrade in the armor to the stormtroopers a bit, but did not translate well to hot toy figures. I honestly didn't mind the Darth Sidious coming back. It was a bit of a cop out, but and there were a lot of ideas that were from the drafts in the early stages of the movies that were so much better that would have fit in better. I'll actually say I could not stand Kylo Ren through all three movies. The only time I actually found him tolerable when he stopped being whiny and when he returned to Ben Solo, I actually did not mind him that much. But it's as I usually call him Kylo Ren because it's all just whining and not getting my way and everything. And he wasn't a Dark Jedi. He wasn't a Sith. He was just a nuisance. And the fact that one thing that bothered me...
They wanted Jason Solo, but they couldn't get Jason Solo.
Even Jason Solo was better than that. But the one thing that sort of bothered me was when he kept going, "Grandfather, I'll finish your thing." It was revealed by the end of the Return of the Jedi that he was good all along. Like he was pretty much good, and Anakin was survived, and Darth Vader was just, and that he decided what he was doing was wrong, and that's a whole debate we can do. Another chat, just Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker, are they the same person, or are they are they two different people in one body? Because that's a deep conversation that can be had. But it's just that didn't seem to add up because it is known that, and if he trained under his uncle would have told him the story about how right before he saved me and he became good again. Yet he acts like he never had that return to the light side. So there's definitely issues and lack of explaining and just things that are almost like just to continue along. I found the porgs really cute. They remind me of my cats. Just being shitty. But they're definitely the weakest. I actually think they go in just the sequel in the trilogies. I think he actually goes from best to worst from first original sequel.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. That's good to know. So I guess that closes off. Oh, what did you
I have to give my official which do I prefer?
Yeah, I think it's obvious, but yeah, go for it.
I'd rather get repeatedly tasered in the nutsack by BB-8 than watch The Acolyte.
Okay, that sum up that 7 questions. So let's enter question 8. Question 8 will be a very spicy one, and I start with Dlord Mandalore again. Acolyte is over. How would you rank the following list of shows? Andor, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Mandalorian Season 1, Mandalorian Season 2, Mandalorian Season 3, Obi-Wan, and The Acolyte. How would you rank them all?
Okay, all the shows. Number 1 is Mando Season 1, Season 2, and most of 3. And also Ahsoka and the Book of Boba Fett. At number 2 is Andor and Kenobi, although the fight with Vader was really cool. There were some cool things, but the show would have been a lot better if you took out the whole Reva storyline. The show would have been much better, even though some things were kind of like, eh. I love the actress who did the little Leia. She was talented, and she did the role well. But yeah, overall it was kind of like an unneeded show, kind of like when I talk about Andor. But so at number 2 it'd be Andor, which had its good sides, and Kenobi. At number 50, I have the Acolyte.
Okay. I think we get the gist of it.
Mandoverse, I love the Mandoverse, and like again, my only real issue with season 3 is the one episode, and it was more of a lot of things that were sort of set up that weren't finalized. Like it's nice that they finally brought in the Mythosaur, but like people were expecting, and I was expecting it to come in and be the final battle was what came in and saved, like Bogot called on it, or Mando or Grogu, and they brought it into battle. There was just so many little things that just I feel could have been done, and like having like in the final episode, I think Boba Fett should have returned for the final battle. I think Sabine Wren should have shown up for the final battle, and also someone who hasn't been around since there's no update on his status is Fen Rao from Rebels. There was rumors that he was supposed to show up in the show, and I was kind of hoping that Fen Rao was going to come by with the other two and come save the day. The show, like the only bad thing was the one part, and most of that episode is actually fine. Like the droid bar was actually a cool scene, and him fighting with droids and kicking them and keep trying to knock them over. I found that funny, but the two of the three guest actors were again non-needed parts of the show, and it would have been better without it. My biggest issue with is not even that; it's just what they could have done that would be better. But I think they're saving the Mythosaur for probably the movie or season 4, or even the end of the whole thing with what's his name with Ron. The Mythosaur might be part of that, and I'm not sure if that's going to be ended in the movie or if that's going to be ended in Ahsoka season 2 or 3. But I think they could have done a lot more than they did.
Interesting. Thank you a lot for sharing. Dlord, you are next. Acolyte is over. How would you rank the following list of shows? Andor, The Book of Boba Fett, Ashoka, Mandalorian Season 1, Mandalorian Season 2, Mandalorian Season 3, Obi-Wan, and The Acolyte. How would you rank them all?
There's parts of them that are like really like good or bad. Like strangely enough, Ahsoka was less insufferable to the other. Like I didn't dislike parts of Ahsoka, but even if you consider that Dave Filoni's like best work because Ahsoka is his baby, something was still off, and I don't know whose fault that is in particular.
Yeah.
But when you take into account, I think the first and second season of Mandalorian is more up there as far as stuff goes. Then you have like, there's just parts of Obi-Wan that you don't even want to talk about. Like, it's like Acolyte. It was a good concept, but failure in execution. Like, you just don't ask the questions because you're going to hurt your head. Why would he leave Luke alone when I'm sure that Leia, like, has the entire Senate that would protect her?
Yeah.
Like, her father is a senator.
Yeah.
You could literally send the Empire forces after someone to get the child.
Yeah.
But, like, Andor, like, is a lot better. I didn't dislike Andor. Like, but, like, you have the latter half of it's, like, half is, like, season 2 going in season 3. I don't like it. Like, parts of, like, Ahsoka are cool, but, like, half of it's not as good.
Baby Yoda!
Yes. No, but
So,
seriously,
how would you rank all of them?
in Disney, like, I probably put, as of currently, I would probably put Andor way up there. Mandalorian, like, at least season 1 as a whole. Andor. Uh, Probably Book of Boba Fett is 3. And then I'd probably put Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, then Acolyte. Like, a lot of the later half of the stuff is you're just doing the show. Like, and you both seen Mandalorian.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have
Nope.
canned the idea of. By the way, they shouldn't have canned like
Don't search too far.
it's not like it's like you can find one less. Like Book of Boba Fett, they could have gone into a little bit of the lore.
So here we are with the ninth question. This is no coincidence. 9. Um, is the Acolyte made out of love and for the fans? Please expand, starting with Dlord.
I think it was an attempt because I think the only people they knew who was going to actually show up would have been the Raylos. That's why you have a lot of the fan fiction that's in the show. I think Lindsay Hedlund came in with a premise, but the team she was provided with and what she gave the directions to her team, it didn't feel like a Star Wars show because it turned into a therapy session. That's like actually a internal joke in the show. Like she goes, but I wanted to have like use it as an existential to have my relationship with like my sister that I didn't talk to. And does the show make the same sin with like Lindsay Hedlund's wife? Like if I ask people this, you do this as well. Does Sherry or Cherry Moon a decent actress? And she's
No.
in every Rob Zombie film.
No.
Like just because you're married to someone, you give them a role doesn't mean they're good
Yeah,
or they're
that's
your
true.
child.
Wait, you're saying Vernastra wasn't the best part of the show?
Do we still know what she does?
Do we
she
know him?
she is not comfortable going in space.
No, okay, first, sorry, she gets headaches and then she gets queasy. I understand. But
She eats
no,
clams.
Oh, she also thrown the white Japanese guy under the bus.
Soul.
so
Yeah.
Oh, and she was also abusive to her Padawan and caused all this bullshit story, which isn't canon, never happened to happen.
so basically, I do believe in the fact that I don't think it really was. I think they tried to because a lot of the early casting and the early ideas for the show made more sense than it does now.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be about a story about the Sith during the High Republic. Then
Yeah.
instead, it turned out into a therapy session slash fan fiction, where that's why you entirely blanked out the final scene with them holding lightsabers as like a married couple, not students on the beat on the rocks. I'm just
Yeah.
like, ugh. That's why I'm like, okay. Like it doesn't. I think it was made only for the Raylos, and then they tried to get like the High Republic audience show it. But it also shows the flaws of the High Republic.
It's
Yeah.
the only positive thing it did story wise was showed how it was the end of the Jedi. It was the beginning of the end for the Jedi. That was the
Yeah.
only thing it pulled off.
Yeah.
That's it. The idea is because if people who didn't know about the Acolyte, it was being developed hand in hand with the development of the High Republic period. Oh God! Oh no!
So,
Oh, sorry. Before I forget, though.
in short, no,
He
in
doesn't-
short, the Lord, in short, do you think it was made for love, for fun, whatever?
I think it was made for fun. What they thought Star Wars was, and I wasn't sure who Geode was. You're talking about the Rock that could pilot the ship.
Yes.
Oh God! In the High Republic novels or the books,
So, question number 9, asked to Dlord Mandalore. Um, is the Acolyte made out of love and for the fans? Please expand.
Well, I sort of already answered this yesterday and in Twitter. It was made by it's a fan film made by non-fans who hate the fans and who know nothing about Star Wars, but they've seen enough of the big things about people talking about, and they scrolled through Wikipedia and they scrolled a little bit through Star Wars Twitter and reading the fan theories and whatnot. And they scrolled through all that garbage. Is it made with love? I think it's made with the blood and tears of an innocent who's being forced to do things that they don't want to do. Just say a goat in a Middle Eastern country.
Wow, that's dark.
You wanted something to be spicy. I mean, it's spicy.
That's spicy.
No.
I like it. I like it. That's spicy. That's amazing.
But you might need to
I
edit
will
that
keep
one out.
that for sure. I will keep it, bro. It's raw. That's not getting cut.
Okay. But no, it was not made from love. It was made from a set of people, and it's not just Leslie. It's if you watch a lot of the people who are High Republic fans in the first place, and Raylos and all that stuff, who come into the fan fiction because of either Grogu or they like to see their parents like Star Wars, and they got pulled into the sequel trilogy, and they think Star Wars. I was like, oh, this is cool, but Star Wars should be this way, so we're going to change it. Doesn't matter what it's been for years since the 70s. We're going to make it modern, and we don't care about all the fans who we admit are majorly male. Males are the problems. Male bad. You got penis? Shut up. I think it was these people who go, and I mentioned that, who did the fan. It was a fan fiction that was literally made into an actual story, and I think they actually said it was canon, but no one talks about it anymore. Where they tried to make Obi-Wan Kenobi bi, and then all the fans of that. And this is a serious thing that happened, that he had a romance, and when he was a Padawan, apparently he had a young Padawan, he had a romance with another guy. And that was his true love, and they take away the whole Satine story that it's nothing. It was just, that was his true love back then. There was no love. It's like, have you not watched the Clone Wars? Like, yes, we have. There was no real romance there. It's like, the rumor is, and I'm one of the ones who that go by this headcanon, is that Corky wasn't her nephew. Corky was their son. Because if you look at pictures online of Satine, Obi-Wan, and Corky, it's pretty much Obi-Wan without the facial hair and with her hair and with her hair color.
Yeah.
It is made by those people who just come into fandoms from one small thing and then wanted to change to their liking so that they can stay.
Yeah. That's a bit sad. But thank you a lot for sharing. I think, like, as of right now, that entire footage is amazing. 1 hour and 46 minutes. It will be cut for sure, like, but I think there will be a supercut somewhere. I will release it like as an extra video or something. But like,
If you ever get
I had a
monetized,
blast.
do the whole thing.
Yeah,
You ever as a member only thing, do it as that with
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Patreon or something like that. But I will keep most of that hour and 46 minutes, but I will like only keep what really is important and what matters. Anyway, thank you for responding to these questions. And I think they were worth mentioning. That's why I asked them, even if I knew the answers, it was something, right? So let's end this part now.
Was best. So I don't know. This doesn't seem like it's that far off of where Jedi would be for me. But yeah, to hear that it's canceled, I don't know. I wanted to know where a few things are going to go, but I don't really want to, just champion this show. It's got some interesting things, but overall, I'd say it's really a disappointment. It just sucks. It's not what we were promised, and the execution on what we got isn't the best. So I don't know. Overall, like the second the season was done, it was just like, really, that's it. Like that's all. I felt very disappointed. So I can understand why. You wouldn't continue that if that's kind of the universal. And apparently, I was one of the more positive ones. So if that's kind of the universal reaction to it, it doesn't cry, let's throw 800 million more at this or whatever. It kind of is like, okay, well, that was a miss. Let's cut our losses. So fair enough. But there are some characters that I kind of want to know where they're going. Essentially, the Plagueis thing, I want to know where he fits into it. I'm not quite sure with the Vanessa Rowe thing, if she was actually in on this thing or not, how far she's going to. Is she telling Yoda everything? It kind of ends on a cliffhanger where you see Yoda's ears, where she's talking to an old puppet of his. So I don't know. It kind of makes me wonder, is she going to let him on everything, or is she about to lie to Yoda and the rest of the Jedi Council? And then what is her connection to Chimere? I'd kind of like to know his backstory, kind of like to know the Plagueis thing. But that's about all that interests me. Also, the Senate versus Jedi thing. If you're actually going to ask me about like the star of the show, I could care less about May or Osha at this point. It seems really stupid that they just wipe May's memory. And then isn't she going to essentially end up like Osha? So aren't we going to be back in like the same place in just a few years once she kind of pieces this all back together? And then isn't she going to feel like she needs to take revenge against Osha? I don't know. It just feels like it's going to set up another loop, but I could care less about them. I don't know. I thought the addition of like Mechnik and then this magical droid that can kind of do anything and is also a flashlight. I don't know. I don't really like it. But there's some elements that interested me, like the Sith thing. I would kind of like to know what happens. We've kind of seen what happens with a Padawan or like a Jedi trainee. We haven't really seen that with Sith. I was kind of hoping we got to see something like that. We did not get to see that. So I don't know. I guess we got kind of a taste of it with May, where she's supposed to kill somebody without using a saber or without using a weapon. So that also comes from like the Vader comics. Vader, his final thing before becoming a Darth or Sith was to actually kill somebody without using a weapon. That's kind of cool. The way that they did it in this, not so cool. And then it actually meant nothing because, the stranger actually took out the person that she was supposed to do that to. It just, yeah. Although, it comes full circle once we get that grand finale. I don't know. And then the way that they did the crystal bleed in the end as well. So that's the first time that we've seen that in canon, which is kind of cool. I guess so. Before, you had two types of kyber crystals. You had natural ones, which are what the Jedi used, and then the synthetic ones, which are what the Sith used, which were red. They changed that in Disney lore. Now you have to bleed a crystal, but it takes immense power. Vader had to do it like, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 different times, but it took him a bunch of attempts and it almost killed him to finally bleed a crystal. Where Osha's able to do it by accident by just being mad at Soul and telling him to stop talking, and then her blood touches the crystal. It's supposed to be like great emotional energy, like great anger, which she was angry in the moment. But I'd have to think that Vader, who had an entire family that was killed, possibly felt a little bit more anger than I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she felt that much towards the Covenant, but I don't know. And then I guess we've got a missing witch. I guess we don't know about her other mother, who just kind of smoked away at one moment, and then it wasn't shown in the room when everybody kind of fell down. So I don't know. There's possibly a loose witch out there somewhere as well, who's the same race as Darth Maul, which cool. I don't know. There's some loose threads that I kind of wanted to find out where they're going, but I don't know. With it being under a 5 for me, I can understand why they're not getting a season 2. I have to think season 2 would have been much better, and they wouldn't have done the stupid storytelling gimmick. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they would have gone gimmick with the second one, and it would have been just as bad. But I think the gimmick is the main thing that hurt them on this. They sacrificed characterization and plot to try and hold this weird mystery that just did not pay off. To me, it just leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. When I finally got that second witch episode, it's like, really, this is it? Because I was half defending the well, we don't know everything that happened. Like, it's an unreliable narrator. Maybe they're going to show us and it's going to make sense. And then it didn't. Instead, some gas on a light switch, some fire on it, apparently shorted out the entire generator for the entire planet. I don't know. It happens, and then fire everywhere somehow, and core explosion. I don't know. I have to think that there was some better ideas in there, and it kind of got changed. It did seem like when the Jedi came to the planet and found all the dead Jedi, there was a lot of ADR, line replacement, where the characters are walking away and they're like, "We'll send a party back for the bodies," or whatever. Where it's like, okay, I don't think you actually thought this through. I think there's a lot of threads that weren't necessarily thought through on this. It sucks. I was looking forward to this, just an era that we hadn't seen, and Star Wars could be something new. It could be really cooler than trying to rehash it and trying to do the sequel series, the sequel trilogy, I should say. I don't know. I was interested to meet some new characters, and it turns out they're bringing a bunch of characters that we know into it. So I don't know. It seems to have fallen quite flat. And I don't think we were given what we were promised. So I don't know. I got mixed feelings on it not getting a second season. I would have watched it, but I would have been one of few, apparently. I understand why there's not going to be a second season.
That's interesting. I like your response. And I got to say, do you want to add something else before we end this segment?
I'm just glad that this show got to show the world Manny Jacinto. He's been funny in a bunch of different characters. I loved him on The Good Place. He played Jason Mendoza. He was in Top Gun. He hasn't been kind of a main character. He's kind of one of those peripheral kind of funny characters. But I think this got to show some of his range. So I hope this does wonders for his career. That dude's awesome. I want to see him in more stuff.
I'm with you. I will admit this. I'm with you on that. Thank you for sharing. And in case some of you that will end up seeing this video want to know more about Gray, well, his channel will be in the description below. And again, thank you very much, Gray. And we are out. Am I wrong? Really? I am wondering, am I wrong? Was this show made for the fan? I don't think so. I don't think so because it's based on what I've heard from everyone. A show made for the fan has some praise. You don't need to dig really deep into shite to enjoy the content if you are a fan. Even Gray, that's one of the most gray and nuanced person I know, found it very hard to defend. This is telling. This is proof that if you don't like your source of material, you will do something really bad. You will do something really bad, I swear. So the Acolyte, for me, I'm glad the show got canceled so I don't need to sit through season 2, because I'm someone that will sit through every goddamn season of a show I started, even when the show is bad. I've seen all 3 seasons of Batwoman, I've seen all 6 seasons of Supergirl, I've seen all 9 seasons of The Flash. Hell, I've seen Legends of Tomorrow for 7 years. Even when it's bad, I try to give my best, my time. I really want to enjoy what I watch. If I can't, I can't. The Acolyte was cancelled for good reasons. It's not a good show, it's a show that will be forgotten. Yeah. And if you want more of that kind of content, mainstream movies reviews, we review movies that are mainstream. The title says everything. Red Blue Podcast, we review movies from the past, from the present, from the future. No, I'm joking. I'm not a time traveler. Anyway, Red Blue Podcast, we review movies just like mainstream movie reviews. So head there. There's a bunch of playlists on my channel for video game and movie reviews, TV show reviews. There's everything for everyone. Hell, there's even a bit of anime, like 3 episodes of Bleach. But anyway, we are out. Take care of yourself and see you next time. And don't forget, Acolyte was not made for the fan.